Hi, my name is Anne Marie Bauer, and the topic I'd like to discuss today is coffee. I know that most of you might drink coffee every morning, but have you ever wondered what coffee has come from, where it came from? If we can trace it back to the first eras in about 60 AD, there were some people there who grew coffee, and they had a lot of animals who would eat red berries, and the animals would start acting kind of strange, really strange behavior. And they thought, how weird that they feel that weird. And what was discovered was that you could ingest those berries or make coffee with them. To 60 AD, they would grow these berries in Arab countries. It was very popular. And the coffee, it was like a flower, a species of flower, coffea. The flower itself is very widespread. The species, there's about 20 different of them. But up until today, drinking coffee, there's only been 3 specific species that we typically use. The first one is Arabica. One second, sorry. So there's Arabica, and then, all right, Arabica, and the third is Keffia. And those are oftenly grown, both the Arabica and Liberica. And it started spreading all over the coffee plants to about 15th century in the country Turkey. And people recognized that they really, really liked the coffee. So in the country of Turkey, it became very popular and widespread until late 16th century, about 1615, the 17th century. People in France started to look at it. And then late 17th century, it was all spread over everywhere, and we wanted to bring coffee to America. And how did that happen? There was a leader of people in Brazil, and he thought, wow, this is a great business. We should take it to America. It's got a warm temperature, and it's a really great way to start a business. So he thought that he could take a boat, and even though the plant was suffering, he could take care of it to keep it alive until he arrived to America and help it grow and become successful. So then when he got to Brazil, they really wanted to get this plant. So they asked the leader of France, the president, and the two of them were arguing back and forth, asking to exchange different species of coffee plants. But they both refused. They had their own business of coffee and would like to keep it that way. So one man from Brazil decided to go to France and met the president's wife. He kind of buttered her up, was flirting with her, and they actually slept together. And so then he was able to get the coffee to America from Brazil in about 1672. In most countries, the plant grows strong, but for America and Africa and Asian countries like China, it's really important for coffee to grow in warm temperatures where it's tropical. Like in Europe, more north, that's not the ideal place to grow, or America or Africa. The best place to grow in America, grow coffee, would be somewhere south. You want to be closer to the border or equator. And it's really delicious, this type of coffee. And it's really good, but it's expensive. It's about $40 a pound. And often people will, they'll pay the $40 a pound, but there's other smaller companies that are all over the world and they have different prices. So how the process of making coffee is, mostly we use Robusta. All over Europe and Africa, it's very popular. And then Arabica. That's my favorite, Arabica. It's very popular. And it's easier to grow. It's a stronger plant, more resilient. It grows easily. And it typically is sensitive. So you have to pick the berries very carefully off of that plant. But with the other plant, the berries grow into big things that you can pluck off very easily. And with Robusta, the red berries, they'll fall off. But if they fall off, they're no good anymore and you can't sell them. So you need to pick them before they fall off. Otherwise, they're no good to you anymore. But they're very popular in America because it's easier to do. But anyways, the third one, Liberta, and that one is good for keeping bugs away, like pesticides. It keeps them away easier. So that one's more popular as well. So there's Arabica, and I'm trying to remember them all. But Liberta, yes, is very short, and the process is easy. And there's two methods. There's a dry and wet method. The dry method, you typically have countries with a lot of water where it's wet, and you can pick the berries easily. Maybe there's a lot of weather. And you wait a little bit, and then you can start, help the plant grow. And the dry, when it's dry, you collect it all, open it up, and in the opening, you pull out the coffee bean. And there's a machine that can also do that. And in other countries where it's really wet, in lots of water areas all over, they become wet in the machines, and so they'll dry them off. And what's left is just sort of what we call kind of like a coffee bean. And it's what you do with it is it circles in this machine, and it just goes and goes and goes until it dries off. And then when it's dried off enough, it's brown and it looks like a coffee bean. And that's the process of making the last step and cleaning. You do have to clean off the bean. There's a lot of various different things you can do. There's a shorter, longer process. The shorter process, you'd have to do it every day. And it's good for summer. And also, you have to remember it depends on the types. So there are two types, Robust and Arabica. And then one berry is red, and that one is usually preferred. It's easier to see and it's stronger. The red berry is much more accessible. And the red one, it's different, but it's good for coffee and making coffee. And so France, they like to use that one a lot. There's various different names for how to mix the coffee. Long, roasted, there's different types. It's whatever you prefer. And I will explain how, with various different things, to how you can use it. In countries like Turkey or other countries, they have really strong use of the plant where it will open up and they'll put water in it, mix it with the coffee, and add some sugar. Slowly it starts to grow into a little bit of a boil, and then you take it off, and then you put it back on, take it off, do that back and forth until you feel it's ready. And then when it has set, it'll look like a little coffee bean, and you can or syrup, and you can kind of pour it around. But you have to be careful to make equal parts. It's very important that they're all equal. And in other countries, like Europe or America, they have a polar where they can grow, and they pour water and they grow from the ground and it becomes coffee. Typically it takes about some time. You have to plant the seeds in the soil. And in Europe, they have strong machines that you add water into, and then it will grow the plant. And it's very reliable and strong. It's also very popular and used like for home coffee machines. And you can't use this type of machine at home. A machetta, but you put water in it into the bag, and then the coffee you would put into the coffee filters, and then if you want it strong, you can add more. It'll drip down in the coffee pot. And now there's different types of coffee businesses. First off, there are different businesses. There's about 1/3 of people who like hot coffee shots, like espresso shots. Or they like chocolate, or a cappuccino, or venti. It's a tall coffee, and it's black, and they just add the coffee alone. Not very popular in America, but it's just basically black coffee, and it's cold. Some people enjoy it. There's also espresso, and that's a very strong coffee, and you can get very wired from the caffeine. Lastly, obviously the most popular, is a cappuccino. Also espresso shots, but about 1/3 of it will do the job. It's very strong, and you would use it, with a special machine, and put water in the hot water, and then soon it will make coffee through a tube, and it will drip down hot water or hot coffee, and coffee will come out of the machine as you pour in more water and coffee beans. Then you leave it alone, but you also can take it home, and you can ask your friends if they use espresso machines with hot water steam, and that does work with the machine. You do have that opportunity, you can, but also you want to try to use your own at home, called a grindola, and it looks like almost like like a little pot, like a teapot kind of, has like a handle. And you put water in here in the back. The hot water boils, and then the steam rises, and then the coffee drips down and it is ready into this pot. There's a coffee pot that collects the coffee until it gets full. And that's one way to make coffee. Making coffee at home, it can be easy. And that is my advice for you. For $40 a pound a bag, if you're going to drink it every morning, it's going to be a lot of money.